fooling around.
Ron?
What?
Please share.
Okay.
You think so?
Sit down, Bruce. All right, it's 6:30. It's our planning board meeting for April 7th. Let's start off by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try to stay on schedule. Famous last words. First off, 6:30 deliberation, vote and deliberation for 24 Porter Road, the Original Brewing Company. That's you, Bruce, right?
Yes, sir.
We have a
We have a draft decision that was circulated earlier to the board. Bruce and his clients took a look at it. They have no concerns with any of the conditions proposed.
Did everybody, did you get a chance? I looked at it. Online. You looked? Anna, did you get a chance to look at it? Do you have any issues, questions, concerns?
So I guess my one question would be, based on the food plan, has that been accepted or approved by the Board of Health?
Nor Board of Health approval is needed for, until you need a food truck to go there. The food trucks would need to be approved. Yeah. And if they are preparing any food on site, then that would need Board of Health approval. Serving snacks, bags of chips or, again, whatever they want. Things like that, or food that they don't prepare on site. Just needs the common victualer's license, and they get that through the select board. At the same time, they get the pouring license.
Well, I just asked because the last time that the applicant was here, I don't think it was solidified what exactly the plan was going to look like, so.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Anything else? Barbara,
I'm
you
good with it.
Jeff, you good? So, anything else on it? No? Unless hear anything otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the plans for 24 Porter Road as presented with the conditions of approval that Maren has put on it.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. This will be interesting. How soon do you think they'll be up and running?
Pouring.
Pouring, up and pouring, yeah.
Tearing it apart now.
Okay. Great.
So, your question was when we think we'll be up and running? So we're looking at roughly around July, August. So we're working on it. We've already started demo, so bring down some walls.
Permitted and everything, right? All set to go?
I couldn't wait to issue that permit.
We're thirsty. Come on.
Good
We're
luck.
working on it.
Good luck, thank you.
Planning on meetings. Working hard on it.
So when will we have everything signed, sealed, and delivered to them? Next,
Well, so I should be able to file this tomorrow with town clerk, and then after the 21 days, then they see the town clerk for
should
the
be good.
special permit.
Okay. Great, well, that was good.
Just so you know, we can't hear in the back.
Oh, all right, sorry about it. I'll speak loud.
The mics are on.
No, that's only for TV.
Oh, that's just TV? Okay, all right, I got the point, all right. They're going to TV, so if you want to go home and hear me. No, I guess you can. See that? Whoa. All right, high tech.
Well, why don't you repeat to them what Maren said about the dates?
She's going to file it tomorrow with town clerk, and it'll be 21 days. They'll have their permits ready to go. So we should be good. All right, thank you. 6:35, continue public hearing, shared residential driveway, special permit, 9 Air Roads, single access for lots 7, 9, 11, and 13. Okay.
My name is Greg Roy with Olson Roy. I'm representing the applicant this evening. Thanks for your time. I think, Martin, you're going to be able to pull the,
Yeah.
just for reference. Sorry. So I'll just give you a summary of where we're at. few weeks back, we submitted revised plans in response to the peer review comments that we received from Green International. We received a follow-up matrix from them with a few outstanding items, I think 2 days ago. Other things that I wanted to just update the board on, the applicant also has submitted a septic plan with the Board of Health. That application is pending. We are proposing, of course, to use a shared septic system for serving all four of the lots. As I said, that application is pending. We've also submitted the application to Mass DOT, which is also pending and under review for the project. So I just wanted to say that in our judgment, the remaining comments that are identified by Green, the applicant doesn't have any objection to them. And we believe, from our standpoint, that if the board was so inclined, they could possibly be conditions if the board was to look favorably upon the project. And we could follow up with a revised plan after that's complete. So I wanted to be brief tonight. I'm happy to take any questions that you folks might have.
Have you had a chance to look at this, Hannah?
No. So
Would
with
you-
that in mind, I think we need to go ahead and continue.
When did we just get this?
They came in just,
I think it was 2 days ago.
so I would agree with Greg about the categorization of the comments. There are some recommended conditions, and there are, like Greg noted, some changes to be made in the plans, just to be updated to show the certain items. There are a couple issues that are deferred to the board.
What specifically issues are deferred to the board?
Let's see, to the board, the pink,
Yeah, everything, if you have the matrix in front of you, everything highlighted, either in yellow or pink, I think is outstanding. Yellow is open comments, and pink is items that are deferred to the board.
Well, let's start with 21, one of the pink ones. Vegetated buffer at the top of the existing slope was a condition of the earth removal permit granted by the Littleton Board of Selectmen. We still have that.
right, and so Green's comment back to that is, does it not appear that a vegetated buffer has been added? We continue to recommend that a vegetated buffer be added to these plans, and they defer to the planning board for a final decision. So, so again, you could add it as a condition.
Condition of approval.
Well, I think that there was a letter issued by Attorney Gould relative to this as well. That gives you some information relative to that. It's our understanding that I just read it myself this evening, so, but it's our understanding that that work will be done, and that that permit will be closed out, and that work needs to be done to satisfy the soil removal permit. And I think that Shirley wanted me to correct the record. She said it was a gravel removal permit, but it's a soil removal permit. And that would have to be done prior to the select board signing off and closing out that permit. So that work will be done, it's just under a different permit.
Do you have a list of everything that needs to be finished to close out the gravel permit?
I don't know if anybody does, but.
It's the soil removal permit, it's the vegetative buffer across the top. We're fine if you put that as a condition of this decision, because it's going to be done. It will either be done by the current owner, or Kyle will undertake it and the current owner will give a credit. But we didn't do that because we're going to do all the vegetation at once.
Okay.
And the soil removal permit is dependent on that, and that's through the selectmen. The only other thing that needs to be done is for the selectmen to literally meet with the current owner and say it's done. Joe wasn't in today, I've spoken with the selectmen. There is the engineering certification on the slopes. I spoke with the construction company. They say the slopes are exactly to whatever grade, I don't know what engineering, but exactly the right slope for that kind of.
Verified that, yeah.
And that they are stabilized. And nothing in this permit is going to disturb what was done on those slopes.
So we can conditionally approve it that gravel permit will be done before any building permits are issued? As long as it's in our
Yes.
decision?
That would be okay.
Are you all right with that?
No.
Okay.
So on our website, these plans are out there, but they don't look like this. Were obviously updated since this was out there, so no, I firmly in belief that we need to be able to have time to review information, and bringing it to the meeting is not okay.
I don't agree.
Okay.
I would like to
Don't
dispose
agree.
of this today.
Okay.
I think we can go through these items and whatever can be resolved can be conditioned. We've had this for months and months and months and months.
I totally get what you're saying, and I agree. We just saw this 2 days ago. I think if we make
Well, if we
it,
saw it 2 days ago, then I guess it wasn't voted, so how was I supposed to know?
I get it, I agree with you. I think if we make a condition of approval that everything on this is taken care of before we sign the plans and before they get any permits, any building permits.
I'm not gonna condition it.
Okay. Bartlett,
I'm actually okay with making these conditions,
approval?
yeah.
Okay. We need 3 out of, what we need.
You need 4, it's a special
4?
permit.
And we don't have to Lisa, so.
Correct.
If we want to have another meeting in
Well,
a
obviously,
week,
we're gonna have to have
something
another.
like that, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, we're gonna have to continue it till May 5th, and maybe by that time, a lot of this will be,
Excuse me. Mr. Chair, I thought Ms. Houston just said she would meet in a week, if we could do that.
I won't be here in a week.
If I could try one more time. This is a 4-lot A&R that has already been approved. These 4 house lots have been approved. The only thing that's in front of you is the special permit for driveway. The special permit for driveway has been all agreed to. We were scheduled for last week, Ms. Houston, and we were not able to come forward only because Green delayed, not because we delayed. And all that Green has on those plans are some housekeeping comments and things that we believe is the jurisdiction of the select body.
I agree with you, but the problem is the previous owner should have taken care of it with the select body before it got to your client. And unfortunately, he's stuck in the middle. And we have to make sure this is all taken care of because it hasn't been done before. We're going on 3 or 4 months now, and nobody's done anything. I know we're in spring right now. If one of the planning board members doesn't feel comfortable with conditionally approving it, I can't beat her over the head to make her do it. I don't know.
just
I totally get it. I know.
Well, no, I understand, I
Yeah.
understand, I don't want
I think we should.
to, so you would like us then to address the comments on there?
I'd like you to take care of as many as you can so that they're not outstanding by the time we come to the next meeting. You know, it'd be nice if we could have even a letter from the previous owner guaranteeing that this will be taken care of would
Okay.
probably go a long way.
Yeah, I understand the position you're in.
I'm prepared to come do another meeting to get this done if you don't want to wait till May 5th. I would be accommodated. I don't know about the rest of the board. but I
Well,
would-
we'd appreciate it if you can, but we understand everybody's busy, so,
Is
you know,
there-
that'll be up to you.
Is there an earlier date than May 5th that people will be here?
What's the next Thursday? What's 2 Thursdays from now?
21st.
I won't be here.
I won't be here enough.
If I could, Chairman, speak for a second. So we're looking to hurry this process along due to the fact that they're going to be paving a road, and we need to bring the water onto the property. So approval would be necessary to do that work. Through the winter months, we were not able to plant. We couldn't even actually buy plants. The ground's frozen. It's not planting season yet, but we're going to be getting into that. That's going to be taken care of very quickly. But as far as approval goes, to push it, if we had to push it up a month, we would be working right up into when it would be difficult to work with. So then, at that point, we might just end up crossing 4 individual services and moving along with the original plan is to not leave the property useless. So we would really like to get this approved tonight if possible, based on, that scenario.
I don't see
Do you
any-
have any questions for me as the applicant in the construction, where you just want to push this thing
Ask
forward?
your folks to get stuff in and submitted
I've seen many meetings where things have been conditionally approved, and here, it's
Yeah,
not
well,
even a
not
topic
tonight.
of discussion.
I'm not
You just
doing
want to
that.
push me right out of here, not even a little question at all.
No, thank you.
That's great, yeah, so.
I haven't looked at this, so once I look at it, I'm sure I might have some
Thank you for your
questions.
time.
Thank you.
We'll try to see if we can come up with another date, otherwise it'll have to be,
No, you have to continue date certain.
okay.
So 14th and 21st are out, 28th would be the following.
I could do the
I could do
28th.
the 20th.
Gives you a few more days.
And I said,
Can you do the 28th? Yep.
I'm not available on 28th.
Will Delisa be here?
as far as I know, that's 2 weeks in a row again.
Yeah, I know. Why can't we do it next week, next Thursday?
I won't be here.
Are there other days of the week?
Yeah,
Well, you could do it with
Delisa here.
And Anna would have a chance to review things.
I can do next week, if you, why don't we try to get in touch
We'll
with
try tomorrow to
Delisa,
get that posted
get
and
back to you
scheduled.
Try to do it next Thursday, if at all possible.
That would be very appreciated.
That way-
Nobody's here to write a decision.
Ah. Well, at least we'll get it done, at least they'll know where they're going, okay?
Yep.
You're coming back the following Monday for the decision, right?
Coming back the 21st.
So we can approve it, Myron won't be here to issue the decision and record it.
I suspect that won't be a problem because you're probably going to still want us conditioned, the building permit conditioned on the soil removal permit, but what your decision will do will enable him to open the road and get
Okay.
into the water onto the site.
We'll try to do next Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday of next week.
That would be appreciated.
And it sounded like you still had some questions about what the select board,
Yeah, and we'll try to get, it'd be nice if we could get a letter from you, from the previous owner, stating that he understands he's responsible for this, and between the two of you, somebody's gonna do it, because this has been, we've been kicking this can down the road for 3 months, and it really should be resolved. I understand that the building commissioner would agree to not have us conditionally approve this, and not issue any building permits until it's done, but I'd rather have it, everything all taken care of in the permit, in the application.
We'll have that for next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, appreciate it, everybody.
Can you just follow up with Green and make sure that
We will, yeah.
there's not a lot of pink on here by
Yep.
the time we come
Yeah,
back?
we'll
Okay.
get on it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We have a 640 Weber Village. Request to amend the special permit. Go ahead.
Good evening. Jennifer Platt from Anderson Krieger here on behalf of the applicant. This is for Weber Village. I know that you've all talked about this a bit. The project is complete. As part of the permitting, there were 2 units that were designated as affordable. Those units are done, and they are ready to be put out there and made available to families that need them. Our issue here is, as you know, it's condition 36 in the special permit, which requires that the units be exclusively marketed to one applicant who's 55 and over. And I think this was put in there with all good intentions. I mean, this is a development that was designed to be accessible to older residents and to handicapped residents. It has all of the architectural features and all of the development requirements that were required under the bylaws. And as you know, under the bylaws, there's no requirement that the development be age restricted itself. And it's not. It's designed so someone can move in and age in place, but it's not a deed requirement, it's not a special permit requirement, it's not a bylaw requirement for this to be a age-restricted development. And we've done age-restricted developments in town. We have 2 of them, and those are both 55 and over, and those are deed restricted, and those were, properly marketed and sold only to 55 and older. The issue here is since this development is not age-restricted, we cannot market solely to an elderly population without violating the federal fair housing requirements. So we've, have spoken to the council over at DHCD, and that's who's going to oversee the lottery process for this project. And they've told me, we're ready to go, we'd like to do this, but we can't do this as long as you still have special condition 36 in your special permit, because it violates the DHCD guidelines and it violates fair housing laws. So, I think it was done with good intentions, but we're stuck here at a point where we have 2 units that we would like to get to families, into the hands of families that need them, and we can't do that with this permit here. I submitted a letter to the board, and I've reached out to town council a number of times, trying to see if there's a way that we can work through this, because I think, absolutely this condition needs to be deleted, but looking for help and input from the board on what can we do to move this forward.
Thank you. Do I need to refresh everyone's memory, or we're all pretty much aware of why we're at where we're at? And, let's you guys, what do you think we should do? We've already had one meeting about this. What do you want to do moving forward, if you want to move forward?
Well, I have a couple of questions, actually. So of the current 15 units that are, that have residents in them, how many of them have residents 55 plus?
My understanding is about a third of them have 55 plus residents. I don't know how many have someone who is 49, in that age bracket going towards that age.
So I want everyone to know that when this applicant came forward, they applied for a senior residential development, okay? And we're now hearing that we have a third, 5 of those units that might have somebody 55 plus. So I'm pretty perturbed that this client, this applicant, makes a mockery of the fact that they actually applied to build a senior residential development, and that is not what we have. We have something that is maybe a third senior development. And so from that standpoint, what I want, Mark, Mr. Chair, I want us to figure out whatever it takes to be able to have affordable units in that particular, in those 2 particular units, period, end of story.
Okay. So
I do not believe that the applicant should be allowed to market those at market rate.
They will not. I mean, these are affordable units, and they are deed restricted as affordable units. There's no request to have these be market rate.
And what can be done at this point to have them be for seniors?
Okay. Do you have any other questions? Well, actually, I'll jump in on that while you've, when we met with you the last time, we asked you what, if anything, you would do to make these more affordable and more available to the Littleton seniors that were here. And that, I thought that's how we kind of left it.
Well, I would absolutely suggest, and it's a subject to DHCD approval, if they would make this a local preference, if there is some way that we can market it or have a preference for locals, I'm all for that. I would support that.
I think
as long as that would,
we asked you for a monetary determination to help some of the residents in the town of Littleton to help maybe try to afford it. And I think that's where we ended.
So the pricing on these will be set by DHCD. So we don't control the price of it. That's actually set by the monitoring.
That's fine, but you could still donate money to the senior housing or affordable housing trust, somebody like that, to make it more convenient for a Littleton resident who maybe can't quite afford that to help out.
And And I will say, this developer did make a very sizable contribution to the Littleton Affordable Housing Trust Fund, $45,000, $3,000 per unit for every market unit as part of the development. We have asked the town, I think they had made a proposal early on, which was, I understand, not accepted,
I think you offered $3,000.
which is what we had offered for each of the market rates. And again, I don't even have the authority to offer that to you now. And what we're dealing with is a provision here which we can't comply with.
I get that, but when you first came before us, you needed 4 out of 5 votes. And there were only 4 people voting on this, because Mr. Scott at the time is a relative of the developer, so it was 4 out of 4 votes. And what put you over the edge was when you told us that you would market it to seniors for 6 months exclusively first, and you did not do that. That's what got the board upset about it. So now we're looking for a solution to this, so that we can so we can sell those units. We'd like to be able to sell them to seniors in Littleton at a reduced rate, so if there's money available to make it, this is all about money. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's all about money. You came in on a bylaw that gave you 3 times the density that anyone else would have gotten. You didn't build a senior project. Now, after the fact, we're trying to do something to finish this off. And we have a lot of seniors here today that would love to be able to go in and buy one of those units. Too expensive. It wasn't marketed to them. They never had a shot at it. So once everybody else started buying it, the rates kept going up and up and up, because it was available units that weren't just going to be marketed to seniors. That made them more expensive. We're looking for some sort of relief. At least you'll get my vote if you give some sort of relief that would allow a senior in Littleton to be able to actually go in there and buy one.
So one thing I do want to be very clear on is that this was developed to the bylaws. It complies with...
It didn't comply with the special permit that was in there. Article number 36 was part of the special permit to get it. You didn't comply with it, not even close. Putting it on Facebook is not even close.
We could not comply with that, not legally.
Then you should have told us that when we
We should have caught it, town council should have caught it. It should have never been in there from the get-go.
Well, no, it should have been. It's a senior residential bylaw. It has to be in
But
there.
the marketing component that you requested, and that's in the special permit, should not have been in there, because it's not legal.
It's a senior. You should have invited seniors in first, not whoever came through the door.
But do you understand that we can't?
No, you can. You just told us you just did 2 senior residential developments in the town. You didn't have
But
each
those
other-
were restricted as senior developments. If it's not a
So
senior
was this.
development, you can't pick and choose based on
This
age,
was,
race.
this was a senior development. It says
But
it right
it's
on.
it's not it doesn't comply with the federal guidelines to be a 55 and over.
You did it that way.
No,
The
those are
other-
the bylaws.
the
That
other
is not
project-
us. We
the-
complied with the town bylaws
The
as
other
written.
project that was approved in the town, every single
Different
resident.
bylaws.
The same bylaw. You got
No,
it.
it's
Yes,
a
it is.
different, it's a different section.
Roger Kennard's project was done the same night yours was
Oh,
approved.
But his is deed restricted. And
That's
that
what we
was
asked you to do,
negotiated.
and you said you wouldn't do it. Your developer said he would not do it. And then to
And
get
that was
around.
agreed to.
And then he would have lost. He wouldn't have gotten his 4th vote. In order to get his 4th vote, he agreed to age restricted for 90 days, just to seniors, and then it was open up to everybody. You did it right off the bat. You didn't even give him didn't even give him a chance 90 days to do it. That's what this is all about.
And I would concur with what you're saying, because that's what I recollect, and I'm more than happy to go back to the videotape and point out exactly where that was said. And the marketing efforts that were done on behalf of this particular applicant was a Facebook ad, an MLS listing, which is basically what any realtor is supposed to do, a marketing material where the first 2 pages were actually for Cooper Farm. They weren't even for this particular development. And then the next 4 pages showed nothing for Weber. Okay? This all came out last fall when they were here. So the sheer fact that that's called marketing, that is not marketing. And so we can go round and round again about the definition of it. But the point is, your client came in under a senior residential development expectation And we currently have 5 units at best that actually have seniors in them. So we still have a long way to go before this can get resolved. I said what I wanted. Let's see how we can
I'm
figure out
sorry,
how to
and,
get it.
to be clear, what is it that you want? Because I don't have the kind of
Okay.
action item there.
I want money. I'll make it clear
Right,
to, where's the camera? I want money. I want you to be able to give the Affordable Housing Trust, I'm glad I keep pointing to you. The Affordable Housing Trust or some other entity in the town of Littleton a sizable, and 3,000 is not sizable, donation so that we can make it more affordable and easier for seniors, 2 seniors hopefully, in the town of Littleton to be able to buy that. That's what I want. That's how you'll get my vote. I don't know about the rest of the board, but that's how I'll vote. If they give us a sizable donation to make these available to seniors in Littleton to help offset the price, the purchase price of it, I will.
And what is sizable in your mind?
You don't want to ask me.
Well,
Not tonight, you don't, no.
well, because we're
You need to
stuck
come
here with a
back.
special permit that has a provision, which is illegal. I think the board is, you're asking for money to take it out.
Mm-hmm. You come back with an offer to us, how's that? Something reasonable, 3,000 is not reasonable. Something that's reasonable to the planning board and to the seniors in the town of Littleton, that'll make it easier and more affordable for them to buy it. That they never got an opportunity. That's all I'm asking. Okay,
I says, as I was not on the board at that time, but I'm listening with great interest. And I object a little bit to your characterization that this board made this illegal condition or whatever, because it seems to me that it was specifically done at the promise and insistence of the applicant.
absolutely.
So they have every reason to feel, betrayed. I heard someone whisper that.
I'd have to disagree. I mean, it was clearly,
Well,
it
of
was
course
a
you would
request
have to
from the
disagree. You
board.
have to disagree because you're representing them. But as an uninterested observer, and I don't have any opinion about the money or anything like that, but it seems incredible, like Anna said, that a senior bylaw housing community has hardly any seniors. And we don't even know if this 5 is a real number.
And unfortunately, I think that this is a reflection of how the bylaws are written.
No, the bylaw was written appropriately, but the board, and you can criticize them for doing this, took the representation of the applicant to, assuming that it was going to be followed through on, and it was not.
So, again, the bylaws don't say these are designed with, someone can age in place. But it specifically says that they do not have to be age restricted. And it's not, and that's a very important distinction, which
They were supposed to be age restricted. That's part of the bylaw.
it is not.
Mr. Kennard did it, had no problem with doing it to all the seniors. Your applicant
But that
refused,
was a
sitting right over there.
condition. That was a condition that he agreed to get that development
What your developer, what the owner said, I'll market it exclusively to seniors for 6 months. That was the agreement that he made with the board to get 4 votes. That's what he said. He agreed to do it, and he never did it. So that's on him. If he didn't want to rent them to seniors and wait 6 months, he had that right to do it, because that's how he asked him. But he didn't. The very first person in there wasn't a senior. The second person in there wasn't a senior. 5 people out of 19 people might be seniors. That's not the spirit of how we approve this, and that's where we're at loggerheads over this. So, rather than spend any more time, because we're running out of time, you go back to your client, ask him what he thinks is a reasonable donation to try to make these, because we're now 2 years later, so they're even more expensive than they were 2 years ago, to make them more affordable and available to seniors. We'll figure out how to make them so that you can market them exclusively to Littleton residents. We'll work on that through town council. We want a number, and 3,000 is not a number. Okay? I don't know what else to tell you, unless you guys have any other way of getting around this. I don't know what else to tell you. We didn't create this situation, your client did.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I just want to refresh the board's memory. The reason that there is no age restriction was so that we could comply with Federal Fair Housing Act. When I was sitting on the planning board, we left that out intentionally with the intention to have it implemented through the agreement that we wouldn't age restrict it so we could comply with fair, so we could actually count the 10% to the town's total affordable housing, so we could always stay above the 10% to always avoid a unfriendly 40B coming to town. That was the intent, and that's why we left it out.
And he should have agreed to it. He did agree to it. Okay.
Just a refresher.
Okay. So why don't we put this on, we'll talk to your client, come back, we're meeting in a month, come back with a proposal to us. Because it's obvious we're not going to change the special permit unless we can all agree that that we're both working together to come up with a solution. Us just changing it, in my mind, is not the way we're gonna do it.
And so, to be clear, it's the consensus of the board that they will not change this special permit, they will not delete this condition without the payment of some significant amount of money.
I don't know if I want to say, well, I guess you could say it like that, yeah, unless there's some sort of mitigating circumstance that makes it more available to the senior residents who should have had a chance. I like my way better. Unless you make it more palatable and available to the senior residents who didn't get a chance 2 years ago to buy it, and now the pricing has gone up so much that we need some help to try to get it to a Littleton resident.
And so what I'm trying to clarify and get some information is there an alternative to payment of money?
What are you suggesting?
I am asking, I'm here in front of the board.
Sure, you can donate it to the seniors.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, we'll take it off.
Give them to us. How's that? Want to build us pickleball courts?
We already have tennis courts.
I'm old school. I like money. I mean, if people want to live here, they have to be able to afford to get in there. Having a bake sale for them isn't going to help. I don't know. I can't think of anything else they would want. Do you want to make a donation to the senior center in lieu of this? I don't care where you put it. I just would like some money that is earmarked for
I
the
would
Littleton
actually ask not, that we don't stray off into other projects and whatnot.
No.
We're talking about these two specific units,
Okay.
and I would like us to stay focused on these two specific units, please.
Okay.
Can I ask, since you're before us, what happens if there's no progress on this? What happens
They
to those
continue to
units?
sit there vacant.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, we are very anxious to be able to get these out there, and we can't.
What can I tell you?
Because I understand there are people in town who would like to be able to buy in. These are the affordable units. The price is set.
What's the price?
That's going to be set by DHCD, and it's going to depend on when we actually get the approval to move forward, because it's
What was
based.
it 2 years ago when you were in the permitting process? What did they,
It
what
was,
was?
it was in the threes. I don't remember don't know the number. Martin, do you have the marketing from DHCD?
I thought I read somewhere that the price would be set based on the 80% of AMI income figure.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct. But what that translates out to,
Yeah, I
I
don't-
don't know the
that
number.
changes.
What was
every year.
what did the last unit sell for then? Do you know
Well,
that?
the last units would have been at Cooper. And that
No,
was,
no,
however,
In
No,
that,
they're different.
oh, the market rate?
yeah, what were the market rates over there?
I'd have to check. I don't recall.
I wouldn't.
I think we need to move on.
What?
I think we need to move on.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Talk to your client. We'll put you on for next month, and hopefully we can come up with some sort of solution.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. We have a 6:45 public hearing, master plan development, Aqua Water Resource District, special permit, sidewalk curb cuts, King Street Common, 550 King Street, 550 King Street LLC. Go ahead, Bartlett.
Oh, no,
who's reading it?
I've delegated it to Maren.
The Town of Littleton Planning Board will hold a consolidated public hearing on Thursday, April 7, 2022, at 6:45 PM in Room 103 of Town Hall, 37 Shattuck Street, to consider an application for special permits pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, in the Code of Town of Littleton zoning. The application for his master planned development special permit under sections 173-226 through 173-234, an aquifer and water resource district special permit under sections 173-61 through 173-63, inclusionary housing, section 173-204 through 173-213, and sidewalk curb cut special permit under section 173-224H of the Code of the Town of Littleton zoning. Property location, 550 King Street, Assessor's Map U08, Parcel 10. Owner and applicant is 550 King Street LLC. The applicant is proposing to permit a mixed-use development consistent with the objectives, performance standards, and criteria and design standards of Article 31 King Street Common Zoning District and Section 173(8) or 9 Master Plan Developments. Proposed uses include multifamily housing, retail, commercial, office, light manufacturing, and other uses that may be allowed within the King Street Common District. Applications and plans can be viewed online at the Planning Board page of the town website or at the Planning Board and Town Clerk's offices during their business hours. Person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed application should provide written comments to the Planning Board office or attend the public hearing. Any questions, please contact the Planning Board office at 978-540-25 or my email address, and it's signed, well, m2hill@littletonma.org, email address, and signed Bartlett Harvey Clerk.
Thank you, Maureen. Before you get started, I just want to remind everybody that this project has been 15 years in the making. We started with an idea to get a town sewer in Littleton. We got that. We got foam-based coating a couple of years ago, which is directly responsible for how the front of this is going to work. And we, last fall, got sewer, and we got this parcel rezoned for the mixed use that we're going to be talking about tonight. It's been a long time coming. A lot of hard work has gone into this, and I want to thank, I see some of the select board here with the help of the select board and the residents in the town of Littleton who went to town meeting and voted this. That is why we're here now. And why don't you give us a brief overview of where you want to start? Can we put this up behind us so that the people back there can see it too?
Which sheet do you want to start with?
I think probably the conceptual, this one, the overhead conceptual plan.
Yeah, why don't you, the plan up here. Give us 1 sec, we're not ready. Unless you want to
I feel like I could yammer away while we get up on
Why don't you
screen. I could talk for a
Sure,
long
why
time.
don't you start it anyway. If we have a problem, we'll turn that one around, so.
Sure.
We have it in front of us.
Should I turn around to begin with, do you think, while we get it up? Oh, that looks like it's gonna work.
We're getting closer.
All right, you can
I'll start. Yeah, so good evening. My name is Rick Freiberg from TEC, the civil engineer for the project. As the chair alluded to, this project's been a long time in the making. There were a number of public hearings that were held last summer and fall to rezone the property to allow for a mixed-use development like the one we're going to propose here tonight, which led to a successful town meeting vote back in, I believe it was October. Since then, we've been working hard with the project architects to put together a program that's a mixed-use development program that'll make sure that the site is feasible and sustainable and serves as an asset to the town of Littleton for a long time to come. We've learned from history that, whenever you program a site for one particular use, you're susceptible to that particular use not being necessary anymore. And so the mixed-use nature of a project like this is important to ensure that it's sustainable for a long time. So with that sort of core concept in mind, the site was rezoned to allow just that. And just to, I know we had an informal meeting last week, but just sort of a high level of what we discussed during the informal meeting. We walked through the high-level site plan. We received a lot of feedback from the board, sort of initial impressions, and we're working hard behind the scenes to kind of update the plan. You'll notice that the plan here tonight is exactly the same as the one before, and that has to do with the time this was actually filed before we had that informal meeting. But I think since there's new members of the audience, it's okay if I kind of walk through quickly, recap the meeting that we had last week. Okay, great. So when the site was rezoned, it really was created, it's one zoning district now, but really it created two sort of subzones. The part that fronts along King Street, which as you're looking at the plan there, runs east to west or left to right across the bottom of the screen, You can see 495 sort of cutting across the top of the screen, and Route 119, Great Road, sort of up and down on the left side. And most of what's there today is obviously there's the two IBM buildings that are located roughly where Building L and the parking garage / Building M are located. And then the rest of the site is more or less parking. At one time that was a major economic employer, and so there was a lot of parking spaces. The new plan, as you can see, sort of creates these two subzones. Out front along King Street is the village, what we call the village portion of the site. It's mixed use. There's smaller scale. The buildings are physically smaller, but they're also shorter in height. They have a really, what I think, interesting sort of New England style architecture to them. Interesting roof lines, arcades, porches, things like that. A lot of differentiation in the facades of the buildings. And they're also, like I said, much smaller in scale. And they're very suitable to sort of smaller retailers, small doctor's offices, amenity-focused sort of uses. The buildings out back are either multifamily buildings, in the case of the ones in the top left. Building L is proposed to be a mixed-use building with some ground floor retail, and then above it, sort of a lab / office space to support either a robotics or GMP type use, which is what's proposed in Building M. So that would be more like a high bay space capable of either light manufacturing or GMP, something like that. So this is the sort of framework by which the zoning was contemplated. I think some of the key features to the project is obviously creating that form-based code district out front. That village feel out front is very important to the vibrancy of the downtown. We also have created, adjacent to the Tuttle House, a very large programmable green space, so that's capable of hosting multi-seasonal events out there. The Tuttle House, which is just to the left there, is to remain in its current location. I know that was a question that came up since the last meeting, but our plan is to preserve it on site in its current location, and have it benefit really from the vibrancy that will exist when you have that green space sort of serving as a linkage between the project and the downtown. An important part of the project is also sort of, okay, so if you're going to have more housing here, you want to make sure people can get to the downtown and to walk around and patronize the businesses that surround Littleton Common. And that park is really an important aspect of it. This graphic, as we talked about last week, only really shows the property boundaries, but our improvements, as you'll see on the next iteration of the plan, extend across King Street and across 119 to make sure people can safely and easily cross, and make sure that the downtown shares in the success of the project as well. That's sort of the goal, is that it's rare that you have an opportunity with a site this large, with great highway access, that's also walkable to the downtown. So it is a truly unique opportunity. And it's why I know that the town and the board have spent so much time thinking about what to do here. So that sort of covers the sort of high-level project overview. Last week we talked about we'll get more into the details of the numbers tonight, I think. So I think that's one thing we hope to do tonight to advance the discussion. We also talked about us bringing our initial thoughts on phasing. So we couldn't present a new plan, but we did bring some exhibits to kind of help us through a discussion around phasing. Where we could at least get out conceptually what we're thinking and receive feedback on that. But I think probably most importantly, should we start with the numbers?
Sure.
Okay. So in total, what the project proposes is 111,000 square feet of retail and commercial space, 200,000 square feet of office and lab, 123,000 square feet of GMP, that's that Building M, sort of in the top right corner, and then a total of 656 residential units. About 66 of them or so are in the village, and the remaining are out in the back, part of the site. We talked at great length about affordability, going through the zoning process, and listening to all the meetings that have been happening here. And so what we've done in this is we've made sure that the project pencils to do the 10% or better affordability component. And we've understood really that there were 4 different buckets of housing that the town was looking for, and we sort of are open to kind of continuing that dialogue and making sure we kind of hone in on what the town really wants to see and what's best for the residents of Littleton. So the 4 different buckets, obviously, you have the market rate housing that's not age restricted. We would also have a component of over 55 age in place type housing. We would also then have sort of 2 buckets for affordability. And those 2 buckets would be workforce housing And so for the workforce housing, we're talking about that range of 80 to 120% AMI. And then sort of deeply affordable senior housing, which we had talked about, maybe somewhere in the 40% AMI range, sort of serving that need. We remain open to discussion. I think one of the important things that we've done as part of this initial plan was we've left some room in terms of density on site. So as you recall, the zoning allows for up to 20 units per acre on the site, which would house about 820 or so units if we maxed out full density, the whole thing. We've proposed what I think is sort of a modest 656 units as an initial discussion starter, and sort of wanted to listen to as we talk about the different buckets of housing, it gives us room to play with the numbers, because it's obviously, as you understand, it's an economic exercise to make sure that we can provide the level of affordability that you're looking for in terms of quantity and price point, and then we can make sure that the project pencils on the back end carried by the market rate housing, if that makes sense. So I think that's sort of an overview on the numbers. Do you want me to stop there before we get into phasing, or do you want to go through the phasing first?
Phasing, but do you want to show the drawings of what the landscapes are going to look like, so that people get an idea of what you're talking about?
And everyone's seen them. Mind if I turn my back to you? I know you
Sure.
You trust us?
So this is a rendering of when I was describing the village district that we see out along King Street. This is a perspective rendering taken. King Street is off to the left here, and it's looking across the fronts of the buildings. So when I talk about the New England style architecture and the differentiation in the building facades, different building materials, but also maintaining sort of a classic New England style architecture. Thanks. Is it up and down all over the place? This is the sort of development we have in mind for all the smaller buildings that you saw on the front of the site. I think now we'll go to green space. We had talked about next to the Tuttle House, there being sort of a large green space that would be large enough to have different outdoor events in the various seasons. What we've done here in the rendering is to show you that, so this is actually the edge of the Tuttle House as it exists today. And then you've got this large green space in the middle, some sort of feature. Right now we're showing a water fountain there. And if you squint real hard, you can see sort of like a bandstand in the back. So it'd be capable of having live music on the weekends or something, hot chocolate in the wintertime, that kind of thing. And this would serve as sort of that linkage between the downtown and getting into the development. So the idea is, I think Harry loves it. So the idea is that this location was picked on the site on purpose because it fronted right on King Street. We didn't try to bury it in the back of the site or in the middle of the site where people felt uncomfortable feeling like they have to pass through commercial properties to get there. We wanted it to be a true gateway, accessible to the public, enjoyable for everybody, and so we located it at the nearest point of the property to the downtown, and allow it to be sort of activated by the people passing through and that vibrancy that you see. Off to the side here, you can see some of the smaller retail, how it extends into the space. You see the catenary lighting, so there's opportunities for outdoor dining, hosting of events, things like that, that sort of share in that green space.
Can you mean by that?
Can we have questions after we're done with the presentation? Thank you.
Yeah, so the format usually goes presentation, then we turn it to the board, and the chair will call for public comment. Yeah, we'll answer every question. So that sort of highlights here what we had in mind for the green space. The larger multifamily buildings in the back will look something like this that you can see here on the right side of this page. And so, they're more dense. It's a different type of product than the buildings that are out front, but it's set way back in the site closer to 495. The height is comparable to the top line of the IBM buildings that are there today. So even though the building looks quite taller from this, by counting windows, the IBM building is perched up high, has really high floor-to-floor heights. And one of the exercises we went through with the planning board last fall was looking at what an appropriate height line would be, and really the existing IBM building sort of served as a benchmark for that. And these buildings that are located in the back of the site are screened by the smaller buildings that you see right at the street. So you don't feel like the buildings are kind of hanging over you as you walk down King Street. So again, hopefully what you see in the renderings, a lot of sidewalks, walkability, outdoor plazas and patio spaces, a place to hang out, a place to shop, a place to go to restaurants. This is a shot looking from King Street straight up into the site. On the left side, you have the village, and also on the right side, you have the village, which sort of sets up like a boulevard style. And then you look straight through. This is the lab office space that sort of exists at the back end of the site. And that GMP type use is sort of over off to the right. The multifamily housing in this view is off to the left, and this is King Street cutting across the bottom of the page here. So we're very excited about it. We think it's a really neat opportunity. We think it could be very walkable. We propose bike racks all over the place, sidewalks all over the place, plazas all over the place, outdoor seating opportunities, interesting site features with landscaping and lighting to make it really high quality development. And like I said, something that will hopefully serve the town for a long time to come.
That's
Phasing?
phasing.
So we listened carefully last week about the concern, and actually it hadn't dawned on us because we don't think of it like this, but it's important that the town protects itself from, just having the back buildings get built and then whatever happened to the village you guys were supposed to build at the end of the project. So what we propose to do is to start, you have the two IBM buildings that are sort of located right here. We propose to start phase 1 and 2 in the parking areas for IBM. That those areas are easily developable, relatively speaking. There's nothing in the way that's there. There's great access and opportunity to those. And also, starting with multifamily residential helps get this vibrancy going, right? If we start in the village, we're concerned about the success of the retailers. So what we propose to do, phase 1, build the first multifamily building and build the green space, so that we've got the Tuttle House that stays, and then the supporting green space that gets built immediately up front as part of phase 1 with this multifamily housing building. It also creates the driveway in off of 119. Phase 2 is to build the building that's tucked behind it. So now we get enough residential density where we feel comfortable that the village will succeed. So after we jump over to the front of the site, and we build about half of the frontage of the King Street corridor, of the King Street Village area, this section in through here. Phase 4, we finish the frontage along King Street. Phase 5, we jump behind the village and do multifamily again for phase 5. Phase 6, we begin to get into some of that, the housing, but also getting into some of the mixed use in the back. And then after that, basically, we pop in and basically finish these pad sites that are set back from the street. So not really important to developing that street wall. But as this becomes more and more activated, there's going to be those retail opportunities that exist behind King Street as well. And we feel like that's when it's appropriate. We've labeled this area here where buildings L and M are located as phase 1A. And the reason, and we made it a different color, and the reason, like we talked about, we have to chase those kind of tenants. We have to pursue them. They put out RFPs for developers. And we wanted to be kind of clear and upfront with our intentions that the timing of that is really specific on the tenant. It might be phase 1, it might be phase 2, it might be phase 10. But it really depends on when that happens. So we've sort of taken it offline of the rest of the phasing. And we really wanted to, with the rest of the project, focus on how do we develop this street wall in a way that's sustainable, and how do we weigh that against the multifamily up back to make sure that you don't just get left with what you can see here without getting the benefit of what you really want to see, which is the village out front. And so we try to kind of walk that line back and forth to make sure that we had the vibrancy, that we had the density to support and make sure that the village was successful. So that's sort of our high-level thought. And of course, the background plan, what's underneath the red and blue outlines, is changing to reflect the comments that we talked about last week. But the concept, we would propose the same exact way, which is that we would balance between development in the back, development in the front, development in the back, development in the front, and go back and forth sort of sequentially through the site like that to make sure it works.
How long? What do you think?
We think it's probably a 5 to 10 year project. Yeah, to build it out. Yeah, I mean, I think it's 12 buildings or so.
How long did you say?
5 to 10 year project. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I'm not supposed to answer.
I meant,
Okay, great. So as we get into the numbers and as the board has questions, it was also a request that we sort of blow up the program table. So we have that, but I think I'll reserve that for when we're sort of in the open discussion part. So between sort of high-level overview of the project, letting you know that we're working on the changes that we talked about from last week, And then touching on the phasing, I think we're ready to begin that open discussion, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Where are you at with traffic study?
Yep, so the traffic counts have been conducted, which is good. So the study, we're anticipating, I think they said the end of the month, so probably around the last week in April.
When do you think we'll see some front door mitigation?
Oh, that'll all be in there, yep, yep. So with the counts in hand, the traffic engineers will run their models, and as part of that, they'll generate the recommendations that will show the front door mitigation. Before that, though, we can start to show you some of the pedestrian accommodations that we've been talking about with the crossings. The traffic report will really detail the vehicle mitigation, but we kind of already have a really good sense of what we want to do from a pedestrian and bicyclist mitigation standpoint. So the next iteration of the plan that you see will include those things. So walkways, crosswalks, bike racks, bike lanes, et cetera. That'll all be depicted on the next version of the plan while we are finishing up the traffic study for the vehicle stuff.
Will the traffic study take into account the transit systems that we're hoping for?
Yeah. Yep, so we've been working hard to locate on site. We think there's two, or at least two, and we're open to more ideas, concepts for transit. We believe that with this type of housing product, a rideshare type dropout, like a common point or rideshare pickup area would be really successful. And so what we're working with the architects and the space planners to figure out is, does it make sense to commingle that with like a bus stop, for example, which would provide access to the train stations. So we're talking about, do we do it as sort of like one transportation hub, or do we segregate the two? But that'll also be on the next version of the plan as well.
And just to clarify, we've made it clear that we want you to be actively involved in the shuttling between the train station to this project as well, hopefully to get residents who live in other towns to take the train and shuttle up to work there, to shop there and everything else, so to minimize some of the traffic as well.
Understood.
Would have been nice if you said it rather than
Well, the other thing is that we're trying to get this as part of our MBTA community designated site. And if we add a connection to the MBTA,
It helps the argument.
it helps the argument.
All right, I'll jump in on that one then. Okay, so in case you don't know, Littleton has been designated as one of the MBTA sites, and how many, I don't know, 60 of them or whatever there are. State has asked us to supply zoning, or to put zoning together so that we can build 750 units by the train station. Is that,
Yeah, the new legislation, the MBTA communities legislation requires all MBTA communities, and there are close to 200 of them, I believe, to have zoning that allows up to 750 units.
By right.
by right?
Correct.
Otherwise, you don't get any state funding, or
Right.
I'll after we're done, okay?
Right. The draft guidelines require half of that, or 25 acres, to be within half a mile of the train station, and 25 acres can be further than that.
So we're working towards getting this to count towards our 750 that we're gonna be mandated by the state to build, okay?
Well, to zone for.
Zone for it.
Zone, yeah,
Yeah.
let's make clear, it's zoning.
Zone for it, yeah.
You know, yeah.
Anyway, all right. So I'm gonna open up to the board first,
I
and then
have one more question.
You're on the board, you can ask it.
The multifamily rental or sale?
Rental.
Okay.
Anna, do you want to start out? No, let Bartlett start, he was chomping.
Yeah, my question is, can you talk about the mix of one-bedroom, two-bedroom, three-bedroom apartments, what you're thinking about in terms of apartment size and what that mix would be?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think just at a high, so we haven't gone through a detailed design on each of the buildings yet, obviously, as the buildings are sort of in flux as we work our way through
Right.
the initial plans. But generally, we see a really strong leaning towards 1 and 2 bedrooms, probably not much more larger than that, would you say? They're geared towards the millennial population and also empty nesters, people who are looking to maybe sell their house but stay in town. I think that's a really nice demo. We've had a strong discussion about including dens in a lot of them, because we know remote work is becoming more and more of a thing, so having a space in the units to have that opportunity is increasingly more important to tenants. So from an apartment size, they tend to, I think, probably skew on the slightly larger side. Than what you might see in a normal multifamily.
Accommodate.
Yeah, to accommodate the dens and the work from home, so probably one bedrooms are probably in the 850 to 900 square foot range, plus or minus, and then, two bedrooms probably closer to 1,000 square feet. But again, I see you writing it down. I'll allow me the flexibility that I'm a little bit off the cuff right now,
Yeah.
and that
No,
as the
I
buildings
understand
get
that.
refined and designed, you may see that change a little bit, so.
You did mention three bedrooms, I think, last week, but you may not be including those.
Oh, not that I remember, but maybe
Okay.
I probably did. If you say I did, I probably did.
Adam will roll the
And-
tape for us.
If you don't mind, I would recommend from the town side that of the non-age restricted units, we require at least minimum of 10% of the units to be three-bedroom units. That way the town can count all of the affordable units on our subsidized housing inventory.
Maybe that's why.
Right.
And the reason that is because that's how DHCD helps us define that we can meet federal fair housing guidelines by doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah?
So, I do have some questions. I heard you say that the front King Street area is a little bit later in the phasing, and that you wanted to make sure that you had the density in that first and second phase in order to make it vibrant for the retail there. I would highly advise you to consider the fact that you have a community and several communities around it who are chomping at the bit for there to be more. So, from that perspective, please keep that in mind, that you don't have to just focus on the new units that are going to be there, but rather all of us here. So, that's something, because we do look forward to having it. So, are we ready to start on some of the questions from all the plans and everything? Or do we still want to stay high level?
I have a high-level question that basically has to do with parking counts. How did you do it?
Yeah, sure. So, what we did for parking was we leaned heavily on what was in the form-based code already for the uses that were defined. The form-based code, if you remember, there was a section on parking, and it listed maybe 6 or so uses that we're really focused on as part of form-based code. Anywhere where it gave us a use and a parking requirement, we copied it into this bylaw. For the uses that were not on that table, we actually just kicked it back to the larger table that's already in the town bylaw. That was sort of predated the form-based code. For residential units, if that's the kind of the primary question, it's 1.25 per unit, spaces per unit, and then let's see, I think I've got the restroom on here.
So that's regardless of bedroom count?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But I will say this, though, as we get further into the process, right now, like I said last week, this first version of the plan was making sure that we had all the pieces of the puzzle on the page, and that we were working together to kind of make sure that those pieces of the puzzle ended up right. As we continue to do that, and as we continue to refine it, we're probably eventually going to get into a discussion about shared parking, because you might be asking for more green space, as an example, and we could say, well, we can do that. Through the use of shared parking, which has proven itself to be a really successful way to do that.
Could you explain that concept?
Sure. So shared parking at a high level basically means that when you have mixed uses on site, like for example, office or lab, as an example of something we have a lot of on this plan, and residential, the need for parking during the daytime on the weekdays is very high for an office user. It's almost non-existent on the weekend and at nights. Conversely, when you have on the same site residential, the parking demand during the day reduces significantly, but it's very high on nights and weekends when the office user is not using the same parking spaces. So by taking advantage of the different uses and the time of day and the day of week, you can actually use significantly less impervious area, less pavement, to satisfy the parking needs, which allows more of the ground plane to be developed with green spaces and walkways and plazas and patios and things like that.
So, for instance, you have a parking garage between the two
L&M
office.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So theoretically, that could be used for the front portion of the site, nights and weekends, which to leave more green space and amenities, okay.
Yeah. But usually, as we feel our way through these things with town boards, there's a need to demonstrate up front that we could meet the parking requirement the way that it is.
Well, and also you need to create parking for your marketability.
Correct.
And which you've done with mini garages.
Mhm.
The other, the problem with the shared, I think conceptually it's fine, but it really sort of assumes that there's a single owner for the entire, property, which will be, maybe, for a while, but maybe not. And so if we go down the shared parking route, we would have to condition it on, the assumptions that you're making during the time. But I would encourage you to look at that
To look
really
at it,
hard.
yeah. And maybe, to your point, maybe there's locations on site where it's more appropriate, like the front, like the Village, as an example. So there's residential above, retail, when those are really, or residential above commercial spaces, which could be doctor's offices or, law offices or whatever, sort of amenity type uses, where they would share really well and be located on the same lot because the uses are commingled in the same building. But to your point, maybe out back, we do less emphasis on the shared parking as, who from the front is likely to park out behind, building J, right? Really nobody. So I think that's a good suggestion, that we kind of, as we get closer to having the puzzle pieces in the right place, maybe we focus the shared parking discussion around the front of the site, and it's probably less important for the back.
And just to make, to your point, the point is a lot of different paths and different owners, and correct me if I'm wrong, we made sure when we did the conditional approval that all the parking was shared, and we made sure that there wasn't going to be segregation of parking or anything else like that. So that's how I will have to check. That's how we did it at the point.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we talked about it during the zoning process, but like the ability to draw interior lot lines kind of regardless of where the parking spaces were, as a financial instrument to allow the development to keep going, is important. And when those cases occur, we have reciprocal easement agreements and things like that we could work out. But your point's a good one. It probably makes more sense to focus the shared parking discussion on the front of the site.
And in terms of the, developing the plots, do you develop the street system as its separate plot, or?
So what we've talked about doing on this one is, I don't know if it would be defined as a plot or an easement that'll be managed by like an association of different owners.
Okay.
So we haven't approached whether it'll be a separate parcel in the terms of like a subdivision, or whether it would be in the form of an easement that would be managed by a cohort of all of the building owners. But that'll be a discussion to come.
And
Those are the two ways you can.
Any more on the general, then I think we'll open it up.
Well, I do have a question related to the terms you used about parking. You said street parking and on-grade parking. So how are you distinguishing those?
I'm sorry, what was the, what is it?
You said street parking and on-grade parking in the documents, and so what's the difference between?
For street parking, it's probably referring to, these are all angle parking spaces here in front of the different buildings. So if they're parking that line, what we're gonna consider as like the primary access ways.
Okay.
We probably refer to those as on-street parking, whereas this parking lot, that's a surface parking area, but offline of the street system, of the street
Okay.
network that we're building, would be the sort of on-grade.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's helpful. All right. I'm very glad to see that you all actually exceeded the handicap accessibility spaces, so that's really terrific. The perimeter of the whole development, there's a lot of green space off to the left. So is that going to be grass or shrubs? What do you expect that space to be, because there's a lot of it?
This area here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this area here is, we're actually waiting on the wetlands delineation report. It's either a very large stormwater basin, which is what I think it is, from when IBM built their parking lots, or it's a wetland. So
Okay.
we've left it alone in either event.
Yeah.
Either it's doing a lot of heavy lifting for all that pavement that's out there today, in which case, like, it's a nice natural buffer. It's not a super desirable location right at the ramp here anyway for buildings. So if stormwater is sort of finding its way there, either as a wetland or as a stormwater management device. We've sort of set aside that part of the site to keep doing the heavy lifting.
So, because there's a stormwater management behind the Tuttle House.
Yeah.
And that's from the parking.
Mhm.
So is there another one then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a big one down there. but-
Yeah, so there's all kinds of, actually, over the winter is the best time, just before the winter, because the vegetation is a little easier to see. But there's a number of culverts that are in and out of here. And so I think what's happening is, you know how this part of the site here is raised up a little bit from King Street? I think a lot of this parking lot runoff goes down behind the Tuttle House. As the site tears down though, I think all that stuff goes this way.
So I did want to emphasize once again, as one of the two different waivers that you would be seeking in this around the facade. So given the fact that at the last meeting I had mentioned, I want to put it on the record for this meeting as well, is that I really do believe that that space between B and C should have something in it. And I think that if you do that, isn't that going to increase your facade percentage so that you don't have to get the waiver?
We'll still need the waiver. So I think that this plan, I forget, it's like 39%.
Yeah, this one had 39.
Yeah, where if you follow, like when we were talking about this in the fall, if you followed form-based code to the letter of the law, it's 60%, I think, is the minimum facade build-out. I think you're going to be really pleased. So the architect has been working on our, since we met last week, I think you're going to be really pleased. A much stronger street wall.
Okay.
We won't be at 60%.
Don't call it a wall.
No, sorry. Engineer words. Yeah, engineer words. There'll be more buildings near King Street,
Okay.
which I think will help fill in those gaps that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think, we're not going to get to 60%, but we'll be closer.
Okay, great. I really do appreciate the ability to have a community area. And so in looking at the water fountain, I just wanted to relay some information from personal experience where I used to live. Brand new development, they had a water fountain space, two issues to keep in mind. One is that they apparently couldn't keep it running all the time. And especially during the winter time, it would cause all kinds of problems. And then second of all, children were consistently getting in and all over it and really injuring themselves.
Oh.
So just something to keep in mind as you consider that.
Yeah, we put on the rendering to show that we wanted to do something of interest, whether it ends up being a prominent public art or a fountain
Yeah.
or something like that. I think we'll figure out when we get into the details. But
And it could still actually be something that is child-oriented. I would actually encourage everybody from the Lapoli team to maybe drive around Littleton during the daytime and see what sparks your ideas, because there is so much just in terms of the different older barns, the farm areas, the orchard area. I mean, just drive around for a little bit and see what sparks some ideas for that, because I do think that, as we had discussed last fall, having that character come through is really important, and it's getting there, but it could still use a little bit more in order to really reinforce the visual character of our farming community. Let's see. I did have a question on the other waiver that you're seeking about occupation of floor space. Can you just explain that one?
yeah, it's a complicated provision in the form-based code that I believe designates that all buildings on the first floor that face King Street must be entirely commercial. And we think that with the introduction of housing above it, that there may be areas where we would, as an example, like if we decided to put some of the over 55 housing, where ground floor units might be very attractive within the village and on a ground floor level. I think it's a delicate balance. We want it to be primarily commercial, but there might be lobby areas that face onto the street where it wouldn't be entirely 100%. What our thought about that waiver is, we wanted to sort of make it known up front that we're probably someday going to be seeking a waiver from it. As part of the master plan process, which I probably should have done a better job of explaining at the onset tonight, we won't know exactly like where those areas are going to be, but as we work our way through the subsequent site plan reviews for each phase, at that point we would have like floor plans for each floor, and we'd be able to look at exactly where the areas that we're proposing the waiver in. But we wanted to put in the packet just for transparency that we're probably down the line going to be looking at using that waiver that we talked about last fall.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all the questions I have.
So let's talk about the senior housing component of it. You talked about putting senior housing upstairs in the fronts of the buildings, hopefully at some point, maybe age in place. And you talked about deeply discounted housing. Do you want to get into how, where you're thinking that's going to go?
We're listening. As you know, it's a, that's a product type, so we, through our public engagement process, have a ballpark, I think, on a quantity of units that you guys are looking for. We understand that need to be in the 20 to 30 unit range, and so we're looking for sort of the best location to do that. And frankly, it may be that we talk about, does that end up off-site somewhere? If it's a more suitable location than on-site.
Okay. There's been discussion about this particular building for senior housing and the offices here moving. I know that you're contemplating going before the selectmen, so I really want to get into it, but could you give us a brief idea of if, in fact, that you guys pursue that option and what that would mean for this?
Yeah, so we, we, I think throughout the invitation last fall, when we were in front of the select board and in front of the planning board, that we are open to listening to all the ways that we can make this the best project for the town of Littleton. One of the discussions was around using this building for a potential location for new senior housing. There's a process for that, though, that involves the select board. It starts with the select board, and so if the town is interested in pursuing that, we're willing to keep talking our way down that road with them. If that opportunity worked out, the way that it would sort of work would be that that there would be a new town hall possibly located on this project site, possibly located adjacent to the green space. And then this building would be converted into senior housing, deeply affordable senior housing. That's a conceptual discussion, but again, it's premature. We should probably keep that to the select board, at least at the onset. But that's one of the ideas that was brought to our attention that we think has some merit and is worth exploring if the town wants to keep exploring.
Okay, and where would you think you'd put the town offices?
Conceptually? Conceptually, I think it would be the blue building next to the green space, building A.
So right there, right at the corner.
Yeah. Conceptually.
Okay.
If the, again, I mean, I don't mean to sound cute, but there's a process.
Yeah, that's why I'm just trying to get it out there, but I don't want to step. I just want to make sure.
I think if we go down that path and discussions mature, and we get into where it makes the most sense on the site, to me, like having a town hall that abuts the green like that is very traditional New England kind of feel to it. Would make a lot of sense in terms of a location on site.
Now, I think I probably speak for the whole board when they said we're really interested in the deeply discounted senior component and the workforce housing. So the reason we rezone this and everything else was to make sure that people that live in Littleton can stay in Littleton, and obviously the deeply discounted senior housing is very important, and the age-in-place housing as well. And hopefully as we get further along in the project, we'll have a better idea of where we're going with all of that. I think I'm done. Can I open it up to the public? Does anyone have any questions?
Just one comment, that, provision of the, I don't know what we want to call it, subsidized housing or whatever, would have to be integrated once again into the phasing so that we don't save all that, like the previous hearing where.
We're listening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, we've tried to be really collaborative the whole way through. We want to continue to be collaborative. So if there are lessons to be learned about the way to kind of structure this stuff, and maybe there's a different way to deal with the housing. Maybe it's different if it's rental than it is if it's bought. Maybe there's ways that you guys are discovering now to deal with that. That's a little more in keeping with what Littleton residents want to see. We want to work with you guys to figure out the best way to do that.
In general, because of the housing inventory, we like rental because the entire housing count would be included in it. However, that doesn't mean that we have that many subsidized units.
Mhm.
So there's a trade-off.
Well, at the minimum, there's gonna be 10%.
Oh, yeah, oh, no, I realize that. And in addition, we're increasing our housing inventories, so, you know, it sort of goes up together.
The percentages go together, yeah. Yep, I understand. Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna open it up, so state your name so Mara can get it for the record and ask your question through me, I guess.
Do they come up?
Yeah, go ahead, Peter. you
Peter
have to go.
Scott. I got a couple of quick questions, actually. You're talking 640 residential type units coming in. The average is 1, 2, or 3 bedroom. What would you say the average for all 640 would be? 2 bedroom?
1.5, yeah, probably. I think it's gonna skew more heavily I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I respond? Yeah, sorry.
President? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think it's gonna skew more towards a 1 bedroom with a den, in terms of the unit count. So I think if you averaged all the units together, you're probably about a bedroom and a half per unit.
Okay, so that's 640 units. We're going to put, if each one had one child, that's 640 kids, we're going to throw into the school system. If we go on the minimum of 1 child per household, right? We got the railroad thing that we have to do. It's mandated by the state. It's shoved down our throats. That's 750 units are going to come to Littleton. And it's mandated, otherwise we don't get money back from the state. So you have the 750 there and the 640 here. What's that, 1,300 and something other units? Is that right? Going to come into the town in the next,
No.
well, that's, the 750 are mandated. It's 15 minimum per acre. I've read the thing, I've looked at it, but regardless, are we looking at still 750 units or not?
No.
Is it 15 minimum per acre? Are there 50 acres set aside
No.
for this?
No. Part of
No?
it's gonna be this.
Pardon?
Part of it is hopefully gonna count towards this.
Hopefully, we haven't heard that that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, we're in the middle of talking to the state about it right now. We don't have to build it, we just have to have the zoning in place. And I don't know how you can get a 1 bedroom and have a kid in a 1 bedroom. I don't know how that works.
So you're gonna limit the number of children permitted into these buildings?
They're gonna be 1 bedroom. How's a person with a
I
child?
don't know how they're
So
gonna do it.
it's not the Littleton's experience for 1 child per household, 1 student per household. We're
No.
well below that currently. I wouldn't expect it to be.
I'm looking at the long term, what it's gonna do to the school system.
This is
What
10 years.
what kind of money is it gonna bring into the town to support the systems of what we have in place? Are we gonna be adding to our schools in 10 years? Because we just brought in another 4,000 people, 5,000 people? There's 3,500 residents in Littleton for the most part, right? 3,500
Households.
Households,
It's 10,000 people.
10,000 people. If
10,800.
we add 1,500 more, that's half the,
No,
that's
not
half the
necessarily.
population.
They're empty, for workforce
That's
housing.
half the residents.
First-time people moving in, millennials and stuff, they don't come with kids.
Okay.
Anyway.
You said you wanted to...
Anyway, this is not a debate. Did you have
Well,
another
it's
question?
just I think the project is too big. It's just too big for the town to withstand. Along with what we're worried about, the 750 houses. that are still
We're
here.
hoping this takes a good chunk of the 750. You're missing that part.
Well, did someone tell me they're gonna
Yeah,
add that to this?
we're trying to use this to offset some of the 750 that are gonna be proposed for the train station. That's why we're gonna have commuter parking.
When are we gonna say, when is someone gonna say, yes, you can do it?
We're
Before
working
this
with,
comes through.
we're working with the state right now. We should hopefully have an answer by the fall, whether they're not gonna go along with it. So far, they've been very, correct me if I'm wrong, very receptive to it. We're gonna be the poster child for the commuter rail housing that's gonna be done in the state. They're working,
Okay, so if you wanna have, you said shared rail or whatever, the bus comes in, they pick people up, they bring them to our rail station, right?
right,
So what happens to all the cars that the people are gonna ride in, get on the bus, from wherever, so all
They're gonna
those
take
cars
the
can-
train, Peter.
They're gonna take the train to the IBM place?
No, they're gonna take, the train doesn't go to the IBM place, it goes to the train
Yeah, you
station.
said you're gonna take a bus
Well, what are you
from,
gonna do with the cars?
Anyway, Peter, do you have a question?
my question is a statement, I just think this is too big of a project.
Okay.
And there doesn't seem to be enough parking in order, if someone comes and takes the bus from there to the MBTA station, where are their cars gonna go? How are they gonna have all the parking for all the residents are gonna be there?
We'll
Say,
have-
well, all right, Sunday to Monday, and it
Stay
just
tuned.
doesn't make sense.
We'll work on it as we keep going. Can I get? Mr. DeCoste.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck DeCoste, 609 Newtown Road, also member of the planning, I'm sorry. I have aspirations. Just to throw you to the previous speaker, first of all, the state is looking at the possibility of including properties that don't have to be within the half mile of the actual train station, the MBTA community litigation or legislation doesn't have to be on top of the train. We've been operating the Crosstown Connect at this location with parking that has accommodated all those that have wanted to use it. And the Crosstown Connect goes everywhere, it goes from the train station all the way to Juniper Networks in Westford and back. And there's a route that they run, and parking has not been an issue. There's more parking available for that type of use at this location as it's presented. So I hope that answers the question of, is there gonna be enough parking for the folks that are going to use this location for the Crosstown Connect? Because the Crosstown Connect is already in place. We've done that with the help of the select board, the planning board, and previous town administrator, Keith Bergman, and our legislators. We've made that happen. So that's in place.
Okay.
It's not gonna change.
Thank you. Does that help, Peter?
A little bit, but you're still throwing 600 units. How are they all gonna park where they're
Can
gonna
I-
park?
We're out of order.
Where? Name, please?
Hi, Peter Mika, 2 Village Lane. So my question was around, first of all, I like the idea of mixing together. I think, you don't want to put all the eggs in one place. I think that's great and smart, and sustainable. The question really is around traffic management and noise management. The traffic management in terms of, there's going to be more units, how it's going to be managed, so, because there is already the intersection over there, which is pretty busy,
The Key Street.
Yeah, so that's number one. And number two, the noise management, because as you said, it's 5 to 10 years. And, the people living on the side over there, how do we get
Go ahead.
Matt? Yeah. So, good questions, and thank you. So, obviously, I think an important part of noise mitigation is distance. I think what's a little bit lost on this plan is the scale of it, how far away these are. So the larger buildings that are in the back that are going to take longer to build are a considerable distance. Just to give you a frame of reference, this distance here is over 500 feet from the people across the street. So if you add the street and the street on this side, you're probably more in the neighborhood of 650 or so feet away. And so the proposal is to sort of start in the back, in the bigger buildings, which take longer to build, are all in the rear of the site. From a buffering standpoint also, you'll see we're proposing to keep a lot of the existing vegetation that's in place. Vegetation is also a really helpful mitigator for noise. The buildings that are in the front, though, that are much closer to the street, are smaller in scale. And so the concept isn't that, one building out front is going to take 5 to 10 years to complete. Each building would go, if you just round numbers, let's just say it's a year to put up a building. And most of the disturbance is really just getting up what they call a core and shell, which is just the outside part of the building. Once the trades are working inside the building, it's much less disruptive and noisy. So that redevelopment, these buildings are purposefully smaller, so they'll be built faster to minimize that. As it relates to traffic, so an important component of the traffic is going to be utilization of this driveway here. And remember that, when IBM was in its heyday, the number of users that were using that driveway was a significant amount of commuting traffic, which you'll see, a future discussion, probably at a meeting in May sometime, we'll be running through the traffic study that's underway now. And that traffic study will document, the IBM traffic that used to be there, the new traffic that will be associated with the project, and also the mitigation that's proposed to offset any increase in traffic, if there is any. Because we know, we know about not only, if I can just piggyback, not only do we know about this intersection here, but also looking at the way that the circulation around the common works is all included in the traffic study.
Yeah, I'm more, concerned about the traffic that add to the King Street. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, can you, name please from our
Victoria Miga. Yeah, my husband. Two village name. Yeah, so I'm more concerned about the traffic, the impact of the traffic on the King Street. Because you mentioned that, but how about the King Street, this area?
Sure. Yep, so we think that, with the layout of the driveways, so there's the main entrance here that's off 495, so any traffic that's coming from 495 that wants to come into the development, obviously they'll want to jump in here before they get to the light. We also have proposed, and it's hard to see on this plan, but there's a driveway proposed right here. A driveway, this is like the main boulevard that's proposed over here. Another driveway here, and then even possibly a back door into the commercial uses over here. And so the idea is that if traffic is coming, say, from like Westford along 110, they would also be able to jump up into the site prior to the intersection. And the goal is to minimize the strain on not only this intersection here, but also the intersections that sort of surround Littleton Common. But again, much greater detail, we'll have, like, when we finish the study, we can talk about numbers and peak hour traffic, which is rush hour essentially, for the morning, rush hour in the afternoon. That's when traffic's at its worst at those intersections, and that's usually what we study when the traffic engineers dig into it.
name please.
Rochelle DuPont, Harwood Avenue. I'm on the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and somewhat related question. So I heard that the traffic mitigation study will also look at bike lanes, and will that include placement of bike racks?
Yep, so we'll, I'm sorry, I should let you finish.
Nope,
Yep.
I think that's all. Thank you.
Go ahead, you two were there.
Yeah. So, as you probably know, bike lanes exist already on King Street. They're just not really well utilized because they're not connected to much around it. We think that with the development here, there will be a place to go. There will be a function for them. So they're already existing on King Street. We plan on doing a little bit of widening on our side of Route 119 to accommodate bike lanes here, and then also providing bicycle racks at every building entrance.
And you said more details would probably be in the next plan?
Yeah, so.
Next version of the plan?
So we'll have more details about that on the next version of the plan. The nature of the process that we're in now, this is the master plan process, so we're sort of very high level. What happens is, the goal of this process really is to formulate the uses that are going to be proposed on the site. And then, like we talked about before, there's probably a 5 to 10 year build out. Each phase of the project has to come back before the planning board to do a site-specific or like a pad-specific review. So at that stage, like, let's say we're going to propose to build Building B, which is this one here. We're going to come in with a plan that zooms right in on Building B. On that plan, you'll see every tree that's proposed, lighting, landscaping, parking, bike racks, sidewalks, pedestrian plazas, all that kind of stuff. All those things that we talk about now get memorialized in what they call, if the planning board proposed favorably on the master plan, get recorded in a decision. And then every time we come back for a phase, the planning board looks at what were the conditions of your approval, and are you meeting them with the phase that you're proposing now? And you do that when the tenants are identified, when the building square footages are exact, when you know the exact breakdown of mixes of uses. You do that on a sort of phase-by-phase basis for these longer-term projects.
Thank you. Super helpful.
Yeah.
Anyone else, any other questions?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. Cindy Napoli, Springfield Drive. I'm also a member of the Littleton Select Board and a member of the Littleton Affordable Housing Trust. I just wanted to thank you for this presentation. You did an excellent job this evening, and I really am very pleased with what you presented. I think it's really perfect for Littleton. You hit on so many key spots about what we're hoping for and envisioning with that site personally. The one thing I just wanted to say to the planning board when considering this project is to try to focus more on the 1 and 2 bedroom units, which we have identified through many reports and studies that we've recently done as a need in Littleton. I know that Maren had mentioned 3 bedroom units for this site, and personally, I don't think that that really fits a need for what we need in Littleton. Just based on the information that we have through the housing reduction plan, we did the Littleton Station study, we did a study for the Littleton Common Revitalization Roadmap, really focused on the need for 1 and 2 bedroom rental units here in Littleton, that would be the better benefit for our community. And when we talked about this project initially, there was a lot of concern from residents that it would bring an influx of families into Littleton. And at town meeting, we assured residents that this was a workforce, affordable housing project, and not a project that would really attract families to town. So I just wanted to ask the planning board just to keep that in mind as you go through this process.
Thank you. You've heard him say that the majority of them are going to be one bedrooms. I don't think you can.
No, I did, but and this is more directed towards Maureen's comment about the 3 bedrooms.
Well, we should have a few anyway, but.
Yeah. I just want
I know.
to keep the focus.
Okay, 1 bedroom.
Is my question.
All 1 bedroom.
1 and 2 bedrooms. And I do know in Bartlett, who is on the Affordable Housing Trust, we did come up with concept goals. We did share those with the Rapoli team, so still want to lose sight of that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have one more, Peter, you got to village line. Are you guys, and I'm not familiar with the state law here because I'm fairly recent here, but are you looking into any sustainability, solar panels, additions that, I don't know, if there are any subsidies from the state that you could utilize in buildings that can be also environmentally friendly and like powering the place and stuff?
Yeah, the Lupoli Companies, who's the applicant for the project, probably has, I mean, it's not my line to say it's probably the largest solar installation of any project in the state, located at their Riverwalk complex in Lawrence. So when it comes to renewable energy, there's also geothermal wells there. They've done numerous tests to find out if wind energy is viable at that particular location along the river. So they're really, I think, progressive in terms of looking at other alternative energy solutions that can exist on the project, and if it's feasible, they do it.
If I may add to that, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Ed Mullen, Building Commissioner, Town of Littleton. We're also a stretch code community, so there's efficiencies that they need to put in the design and the construction. There's also, we're in the 2018 phase, but through this project, the state's going to adopt the 2021 IECC code, International Energy Conservation Code, which will become even more restricted and demanding on the efficiencies that are built into the buildings.
Anyone else? Any questions, concerns? No? Good. Go ahead.
So, I don't know if anybody from the Historical Society is here tonight?
Commission?
Commission, sorry. Historical Commission. No? Maureen, would you be able to ask this question?
Yeah, actually, I did forward that to Rick and his team late this afternoon.
It's about the title house, and the intention is to preserve the title house and
In its location.
A use for it, or are you still?
We're open to alternatives, but we're not talking about converting it to residential or something like that. It'll be an office probably of some kind, whether it's municipal use or some other use that's suitable for the town, but keeping it where it is in its current location.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Sven Heisted here representing 410 Great Road, which is a large building across the road there. We just want to say that we're very pleased with what's been presented here and think they've done a nice job and support the project completely.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon.
Last question from me. So, based on Select Board Member Napoli's comment and Maureen's comment about 3-bedroom units, I think it's important to maintain that the planning board has responsibilities to always look to what fair housing laws say. And we as a community need to follow fair housing laws. And so from that perspective, I invite the Lupoli Company team to look into it, to make sure that whatever it is that they're proposing is along those lines, and that if 3-bedroom units are part of that requirement, then we're going to be looking for it. So
maybe we'll make the seniors 3-bedroom, put them all 3 bedrooms for the seniors.
I'm just simply commenting that we have responsibilities, and that would be one of them, so thank you.
Okay.
And since the historic comment was brought up, I'd like to see, where you're showing the green space, great, that was the site until the last redo of the site of the oldest continually the oldest continuing growth pear orchard in the U.S. And it would be nice, and you said that you looked at old pictures of the Mesereau property, and it would be nice to have a few markers or, acknowledgements of what went on that site.
Yeah, I think that's a great way, that's a great thing we could do, placards and memorials or photos or whatever, yeah.
Even one pear tree?
Yeah.
With a partridge?
No, they're Bradford pears, which don't actually have fruit, so.
right.
yeah.
Are partridges and pears?
Anything else before we continue this till
So-
May?
Yeah, May 5th is the next regular meeting. We're gonna have 2 new applications, 1 Monarch Drive, 7 o'clock, 242 King Street for the
Water department?
town sewer at 7:45. Do this one at 8:15. That way we'll let it run as long as it needs to.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, I think that's great. It also gives us time to refine the updated plan and make sure that we have a new plan for you to look at next time, so you don't see this one again.
Great.
And just a note to the board that we did get a request from the water department that we've shared with Rick and his team for the water department's engineer to run a hydraulic model to check on their fire flow, water quantity, make sure water quantity is available for fire flow. And that's $7,400 for water department's engineer to do it. And
We'll get that taken care of.
Have we gotten a peer review estimate yet for them?
from Green, no, we're still,
I think it sounded like they wanted to see the traffic study before preparing it. If it expedited though, I mean, like, we could talk about, an initial, like, escrow amount. If it expedited getting them under contract, that way, when the study's available, they'll be sort of really able to jump into it.
Okay.
And if they need an updated amount, based on what they see, then we can talk about it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
certainly work with that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. Have a great night. We'll see you next month.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
So, Mark, you might want to officially vote to continue,
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to continue until May 7th.
May 5 at 8:15.
May 5th at 8:15.
Yeah, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We have an informal discussion for 410 Great Road.
410 Great Road.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, it is.
It is?
Yeah.
On the updated one.
Did good. Ricky did good. Did good. Hey, Ricky. Can I just show you one thing? Can I see the plan for the green space? Can you get rid of Sal's?
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was gonna poke you and say.
I thought that was actually quite hysterical.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Like, at first I thought it was like a storefront, and then I looked closer, it's like, no, that's a food truck.
Are you thinking of giving us a breakdown of 1s and 2s and 3s? You can put more 1s, you heard.
And when you go one with Dan, that's basically a windowless room. The village, the 15 Great Road did that.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Sven Heisted.
Could we keep it down in the back a little bit? Thank you.
I'm here representing the owners, Joe Collins and Company of 410 Great Road in Littleton here, which is just across the street from this project. I just want to thank you for entertaining us here for just maybe like 3 minutes. I just wanted to kind of just let you know what we're doing and what to expect from us here in the near future. We've been planning this project and going through several iterations over quite a long period of time. And I'm just letting you know we're in the process of doing that. We were not able to finish anything to bring here tonight, but we will get it submitted prior to the next meeting. Hopefully we can get on that agenda and get your feedback. But I just want to let you know we're talking about a scaled back project from our initial ambitions, but I think it's going to be a better project at the end of the day. We're looking to follow, really be sensitive and read and listen carefully through the revitalization plan that has been put together for the town of Littleton, and also fall under and take advantage of and follow through on the so-called form-based code model and space planning and building planning and characteristics that have been put in that document as far as aesthetics and uses and spaces. And I think it'll really sort of dovetail with the projects being done down the street there to sort of jumpstart that process. So thanks for having us, and just letting you know we're in the works, and we're excited to bring you something shortly that will be well in keeping of the plans the town's before. That's all I had to say. So
Oh, that's good. Can we, Maren and I asked you to come because you wanted to get a sense from the board of what you could do out there.
Yeah, I think it's a little, we're happy to, we want this to be a commemorative, a cooperative thing, and whatever we can do. I think at this point, we're sort of going through our own dialogue to figure out what we're proposing. And maybe the better thing would be to figure that out and sort of propose it to you and see what you're thinking. I think it's going to be in keeping with.
Well, we need to tell you what zoning would allow out there. I think you need to be aware of that.
Okay.
And just the history, the original proposal, they wanted to come in with 350 units.
Well, it was 300.
Yeah, 300, okay.
Yeah. That was a bigger scale building than we're proposing now.
I know, but your issue is zoning. You have 4 acres there, so you have to keep that in consideration.
Yes. Yeah, we heard that, and we're trying to
Ann
do
is
that.
the guru on form-based coding, so I don't want you to waste your time is what I'm trying to, I guess, to, we're looking at, I don't know what number you've come back down from 300, but zoning right now, the way it stands in the town of Littleton, and correct me, you're better at form basis, maybe 60 or 80 units you can get out of there out of 4 acres, if you can fit everything there. Probably not even that.
I don't think it's a good idea to throw numbers out, but I just think it depends, right? It depends. I mean, it depends on how high, it depends on
Well, 2.5
how
stories.
wide, and, yeah.
Right. Part of in the discussions over the last several years, some of the requests, informal chat has been about whether or not the town would support a zoning bylaw amendment for that site. We did decide to include it in the form-based code in the new Village Common Mixed-Use District. That's 2.5 stories max for commercial and residential. Some nod towards the board having some leeway for reuse of historical buildings. But I agree with Mark. I can't imagine being able to, under form-based code, fit more than maybe 80 units on the site, and that's just a guess because I'm not good at, I don't do space planning.
I just don't want you to waste your time.
I understand. We heard you, and we're trying to respond to that. So in our opinion, it seems like more of a geometry question, a site planning geometry question, more so than
That's why I said it
number.
depends.
So we haven't arrived at a proposal in our own planning. We're trying to kind of figure that out, through the space planning aspect. So
Yeah, and I hadn't heard any feedback from the board whether you were interested in entertaining zoning bylaw change for this site, the 410 Great Road site.
if you're willing to consider that, I think it would be an appropriate thing to consider if the board is open to it.
I think we have enough going on with the Lopoli company right now.
I'm not interested, and also, I just wouldn't be interested in anything that takes down the multi-story part of the mill.
The part that fronts Great Road.
That's just a familiar
landmark
of every single pass-through of the common. And it probably could be retrofitted into housing. It might be really nice.
There's a few different parts of the building. It's been
I
added on to
understand
over
the
the
part in
years.
the back
And the rear part is more of an industrial.
Yeah, exactly.
Not quite that fitting for.
But I'm just saying the part that's visible from all the way down from the point, all the way down Great Road, you have that, little tower, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, you were originally going to have a restaurant up there, if I remember 4 or 5 years
There was
ago.
some conversation of that, sort of.
Well, you have that boiler room. Oh my God! So you need to do something with that. That is so cool.
Oh, that's a cool thing. Yeah, we were actually talking about saving part of that and making that as
absolutely,
because that part of the building is more of an industrial part of the building, but utilize that as maybe a historic feature in the building somewhere or in the lobby or something.
If it became a
Try to-
unit, I might consider moving it.
Yeah, try to bring that, well, we're respectful of the history and trying to preserve that as much as possible. so.
I'm just trying to warn you before you go off with all these numbers, that you're gonna be constricted as to what you can and do. Now, that's
Yeah.
not to say you couldn't ask for zoning. You'd be, you have to do that on your own, but you'd have to petition the town for a zoning change out there, and you'd have to
No, understood.
go through all the town
Yeah, and that
meetings and
takes
everything
some
else like that.
support, so.
Well, the issues, I think we've got a handful with Lapoli right now, so.
I think my comment is, and we have 2 architects on the board now, but architects can do amazing things. And so depending on who you're kind of working with, I mean, they can envision and they can perhaps figure out something that's economically feasible as well as feasible to what fits in with the town. So I guess if this is an informal discussion, my only comments
sure.
are to think about it in different ways and see what you all can come up with.
Okay. Yeah, your creativity goes a long way to solving lots of problems. I totally agree with that.
And in the historic aspect of the, I mean, just in terms of the zoning, the adoption of form-based code allows a greater density of housing that would otherwise be allowed. And that was one of the purposes of it.
Yeah.
We want to see a greater density, but not at the level of what you were initially.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that loud and clear, and we'll adjust accordingly, so.
Haven't-
I only hesitate on picking a number, because we haven't really arrived at a number. We're trying to do the geometry of the site according to the, form-based code kind of guidelines and see where that leads us, so. I guess that's one.
Well, I wouldn't go
avenue.
full-blown, I would do it, if you're gonna do an architectural rendering, I wouldn't go any much further than that.
Yes, correct, yeah. We're not gonna get carried away without your feedback, but as far as conceptually, be a conceptual plan, this is what we're thinking, so. There's gonna be a whole number of,
Okay.
conversations
I just-
to narrow it down, but we kinda come up with what we're proposing, and then you can,
Yeah, I just
you know,
want you to be mindful of the existing zoning that's there, that's.
okay. Is that would you say that'd be a priority then, to try in whatever way possible? Because it is in theory, you can save lots of things, doesn't matter how much money you want to throw at it. So you have to make it aesthetically work, but also economically work. So it may work for part of the building, but maybe not the whole building.
But you
For
gotta
instance, so.
understand how much your density, this is all about density. You only have 4 acres, you don't have
I
40
understand.
acres for
Right.
650, you have 4 acres.
Right.
And you have to keep your wetlands, you have to keep your green space and not less than its natural state. It's a lot in that jigsaw puzzle,
I agree with you.
but you have to be realistic in the number.
And
I got it.
maybe in that
Yeah.
number, I'm just kind of contemplating based on what Lupoli said earlier today about their buckets of housing, maybe, high end, because that's not part of what they're necessarily focusing on, so.
Me and our project go more
Right,
a different
right.
level than their project.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
it's complementary. so
Yep.
Just a
Yep.
thought.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate that, yeah.
Okay.
Would the board entertain on a sort of macro level, saving a portion, changing a portion? The back portion of the building, in my opinion, isn't that,
I agree.
Historically
I'm
significant.
clear. I want to see the wood frame, 4 or 5 story building, and it seems easily converted to housing.
But it gets to the point of at what price and how many.
Yeah, but we're in a market where prices are really.
well, that's the advantage, that it gives us a little bit of leeway, but you still have to pay for this, and it's still, and this kind of a building, it's a gut redo,
Of
as far as
course,
mechanicals and all that.
And,
so-
and frankly,
the floors.
there should have been a gut redo even for its present use 20 years ago. So,
Yeah, agreed. The reason why it is what it is that the owner came in there, it was mostly vacant, he's been trying to fill it, and the way he's filled it is you keep the rate, the rates very, very low, and over the years, it's served a real purpose to have, incubation companies and
absolutely.
growing companies and
It's
different
always
people in there.
fascinating to walk through there and see what's going on.
The challenge, though, is that when you have low rents, you don't have a lot of money to do a lot of improvements, so the building has kind of slid, on a maintenance level. It's not any major cap expenses in, 40 years. So.
But, when you talk about the town looks at that building every day and sees it sliding into disrepair.
Right.
So there hasn't exactly been a lot of goodwill built up. But boy, there could be if it's reused and spruced up and part
Okay.
of something new.
Okay, mainly that street front that you're gonna see, and,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. The rest of the project, you don't see too much,
No,
it's
no,
kinda
no, no,
screened
no,
by
no.
the.
Care too much.
No, I wouldn't object to tearing down parts of that building that are in back if they're not structurally sound, but if that front building is structurally sound, it's, 4 or 5 stories, and the code limits you to 2.5 stories.
Yeah.
So there's a logic there about reusing it.
Mm.
And I've seen a lot of old mill buildings converted into apartments, and some
Oh,
of them can be quite
we've done them
fun.
too, it's, there's some buildings that are easier to do
Yeah,
that with than
right.
others.
No, I don't know, I haven't been enough in that building to know much about it, but I
Yeah.
think, I'd be inclined to try to keep as much of it as I could. And you
Okay.
could paint that boiler and make it into a brew pub.
That's gonna be our meeting room right there. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate your time, look forward to coming back to you.
Minutes?
Let's see, I had posted minutes of the, March 3rd meeting, is that?
Anybody get a chance to
Yes.
look at them?
Yeah,
They're good?
yeah, because those were posted.
Okay. How about board member input? Anybody got anything?
Nothing new on my front.
Nothing on mine. Anything new?
There was, no, I don't have anything. I mean, there was a fire in that building a little while ago, but
Can you shut us
troopers
off?
put it out.
Are we done?
Okay, so adjourn?
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I
Second.
Oh, wait, so we didn't approve those minutes, or we did?
I think I saw 3 or 4 of those.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I
That was
approve.
approving the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, some nights,
Get us-
yes.
Okay.
Thank you all. Good night, Littleton.